What's up, guys? Welcome back to MCU Movie Review.
Yes, sir.
Today we are here with our first actual movie review.
That's right.
Which is going to be Inside Out 2.
Yeah.
Which, it's a great animated movie, man.
Yeah, man.
The first one was fantastic. But anyway, we're going to go in and just kind of talk about what our thoughts were going in, what our expectations were, and then how they held up.
Yeah.
And just our thoughts on the movie in general.
Yeah, and just to preface, because this video will be uploaded at least a few weeks after the movie came out, there will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the movie and you want to watch it and not be spoiled, I would recommend you not watch this video until after you've watched the movie, and then you can kind of compare some of your thoughts and some of your opinions. So, Colbs, just briefly talk about what kind of were your expectations going into this movie. Did you have high expectations? Were you a little hesitant? What were you kind of thinking?
I wasn't really even hesitant either, really. I just didn't really know to expect.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was going to be bad.
Yeah.
Because, the first one was just so solid, and it had such a good foundation for a story and plot. Like, it would have taken effort to make it bad, I think. It would have taken deliberate choices to make it not as good.
The concept of this movie is so cool and so interesting in and of itself that, like you said, like an okay movie in this world with this concept I would have enjoyed. So like you said, like it would have had to been like consciously bad for me to be like, yeah, it was bad. I had really high expectations going to this movie. I love Pixar. I mean, Pixar is just, they're amazing. Obviously, everyone knows that Pixar's quality across the board has taken a hit the last few years. It's just very hit or miss. They still put out great movies, but they put out some that are not as great, whereas they had a stretch there for about a decade where, it was just banger after banger classics, right? I am one of those who, and I don't think this is a really hot take, but obviously this is my opinion, I believe that the first Inside Out movie is the best movie Pixar's put out in the last decade. I love the first Inside Out movie, and I think it's one of the best original ideas or concepts for a Pixar movie that they've ever come up with. I mean, it's just so inventive and so creative, and so I was really, really excited for this second movie, and I'm glad to say that it lived up to my expectations for the most part. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about some of the things we liked and a couple of things we didn't like, but I think that it picked up right where it left off, and it didn't really lose much steam, honestly. I just, like I said, I really love this idea. One of the most impressive things about this movie that I thought about was its ability to tell this story that has been told thousands of times. This story of a young girl who's growing up, who's changing schools, who's making new friends and trying to fit in and do all this, you know what I mean? Like, that's a age-old story, but they're able to tell it in a way that it's so unique. Yeah. It doesn't feel like that's the story you're watching. Even though like that is the story, that is what's happening with Riley, it doesn't really feel like that's the story because the story really revolves around these other characters that are inside of her head, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's what's so cool about it. I just love this, when you really think about the pop cultural impact that the first Inside Out movie had, it's really staggering how many things, like, I was thinking about this the other day, we talk about all the time, it's kind of like a turn of phrase now to people talk about core memories. That's from this. Like, that wasn't a thing before this. Like, it was, like, that's what's, like, there are so many little things that are literally, like, just cultural things now from this franchise. And so I just think the way that they're able to, build this world inside of Riley's head and the way that they're able to kind of portray everything and picture everything is what captured me so much in the first movie. The idea of the how she makes memories and the core memories and what those do. And then obviously you have all these different places they go in her head, joy and sadness in the first movie where you have long-term memory and you have, the imagination land and all this stuff, and you see all these cool aspects like that is what, Dream Studios, stuff like that. Like, that's the stuff that I loved, the way I wanted to see. Like, I would think of things that go on in our heads, and I would want to know how they would picture that in this world. Yeah. And you just got to see more of that in this movie. You got to see this cool, this idea of the sense of self, which is really what the whole movie revolved around. Yeah, and that was one thing that I thought was, of all the things, they took everything from the first movie
and then they just added new aspects. They added new it's like when in games when there's an update, it adds a new mechanic. It's like that sense itself is like a new mechanic. It's like something new. Yeah. And it's like with them getting the new and updated control board. That was really cool. Yeah. And we got to see more of at the very end, like towards the end of the first movie, when they have the bright idea, they screw into the board to run away. Like we see a lot more of those bright ideas implemented into this movie. Oh yeah. And they just like expand on it, which is really good. And like the sarcasm, that was really cool. That was fun.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of really cool little things like that. The brainstorm, you know, when anxiety's trying to think of ideas of what to do, and they're lost in this brainstorm. Like, those are just things. Yeah. They're just fun. Yeah. One of my favorite things, I don't even know what to call it. I kept calling them, like in my head, I kept calling them like gimmicks. Yeah. You know, maybe that's not the right word for it, but just these different ways to picture these kind of abstract ideas in your head. One of my favorite things that they showed in this movie regarding that is the way anxiety used Riley's imagination against her. Yeah. That was so cool. That was just such a cool way, because we obviously in the first movie were introduced to I don't even remember what Imagination Land or Imagination
it's like its own
Nation or whatever. Yeah. And you have these funny things of, you know, Riley's imaginary boyfriend machine or whatever. Yeah. You know, it's you know, like just really funny little things in her in her imagination. But the way anxiety, you know, set up shop in her imagination and used her imagination to think of all these different possibilities, all the things that could go wrong. That was such a cool way to portray what anxiety does. Because anxiety does use your imagination against you. You're worried about things that haven't happened yet, and that probably will never happen, but like you're worried about, and that's what anxiety is. So I thought that was so cool. One of my favorite things about Pixar in general is their ability to tell such a really complex story with very adult themes packaged as a children's movie. Yeah. Right? Because you can take a 6-year-old to watch this movie, and they're gonna love it because of just
there's some fun, quirky moments. Yeah. That it's like there's slapstick comedy. There's a lot of stuff that's just like it is elementary comedy. Yeah. Some of it is, and then some of it's more advanced. And then with the advanced comedy, there's advanced plot.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so it's so cool that you can take a 6-year-old to watch this movie, and they're gonna enjoy it. We can go watch this movie, we're going to enjoy it. A 50-year-old can go watch this movie, and they're going to enjoy it because it's almost like we're watching different movies. Really, you know what I mean? Like they're just watching, a kid is just watching what's happening on the surface. We are kind of seeing like that they're tackling these complex subjects. Like it is so difficult to even talk about these ideas of cognitive and emotional and behavioral development, especially through puberty. And to just portray it in such a fun, lighthearted way for all ages is so impressive. And they've been doing it for years.
Everyone online has been saying, like, they think that it was intentional releasing it, 8 years later? First one came out 2016? 2015?
Yeah.
9 years later. A lot of people are saying, like, it's kind of cool. It's almost like they waited for us to grow up. Yeah, to be able to go back on. And I got chills when I think about that. Like that's like, I don't know if they did that intentionally or not, but I mean it does work. I mean because you know we were 9, 10 watching that first movie, give or take 9 or 10 watching that first movie, not us, but like base audience was around those ages. I mean, skip 9 years later, they're late teens, early 20s. And
so they're able to see the movie that Pixar wanted them to see. Yes. Like the deep thematic rich element.
Also adds a lot of replay value. A lot of rewatch value, I guess. Oh, yeah. And that's another cool thing. 'Cause it's like you could put this movie on for a kid and have it on the background. You're not focusing on the complex plot anymore. You can just pick up on the small things that are funny or cool or Easter egg, you know, like anything like that. So I think that's really cool that they wait. I say that they waited. That it came out when it did.
Yeah, for sure. I love one of the main things I love just about the plot of this movie compared to the first one was in the first movie we get our main for 80% of the movie, joy and sadness are together. Anger, fear, and disgust are together, right? In this movie, obviously, they introduce these new emotions, which I enjoyed. I'll talk about them more in a second. Yeah. But for this movie, sadness is on her own for probably 60-70% of the movie.
Yeah.
But the joy and the other three main emotions are together for most of the movie, which I enjoyed. I'm glad we got to see them together for a lot of the movie because I loved their dynamic. You know, even at the beginning of the first Inside Out movie, that's what kind of catches you right away and gets you a bunch of really funny laughs. Or just the way that joy and anger and fear and disgust
the contrast
and sadness,
so much.
yeah, the way they interact with each other because you realize they contrast so much because they all make they're not each an individual. They make up together one individual's emotions.
Yeah.
So like joy, they're not complex characters in the sense that like they are one thing each.
Yeah.
They're only anger. They're only fear. They're only disgust. And so it's just fun to see them interact. And we got to see a lot more of that in this movie.
Up until Joy.
What do you mean?
Her breakdown.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Up until that, the complete, because I mean, she broke down right there, and then that's so cool because it's like a switch, because once Riley's the main character, but Joy's the main character.
Yes.
Too. Once the main character has that switch and has that complexity, it's like you see anger. Console her. You see anger console her. And then disgust comes in, and then fear. They all drop their soul action, and then they just decide to, or they I don't even know if they decided. They just felt like they had to be there for her, and then they did. Like
and
it wasn't a question.
Anger was the hero of this movie.
he was really good.
He really he stepped up, dude. He took charge. You know what I mean? I love that. But I think that is like what you're talking about. The way they showed that and portrayed that was symbolic of the greater message of this movie, which I love about. They did this in the first movie and in this movie. This idea that nobody, including Joy, is 100% in the right.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's 100% in the right. Nobody's really 100% in the wrong. The right is somewhere in the middle. Right? And you have to find that happy medium between all of these emotions. You have to understand that all of these emotions play a role, an important role. Like they're all there for a reason. And you see, and so that's so cool that when you see the memories start coming in, and it's like a little bit of three different emotions, you know.
And they bleed into each other.
Yes.
They're not separate like we thought they were.
Exactly.
Like in the first movie, it was portrayed that they were separate.
Yes, but I think the reason it's portrayed that way is because, like you said, Joy's kind of our main character. We're kind of seeing things from her perspective, and from her perspective, that's how she felt. Was joy and sadness can't go together. I've got to do everything I can to combat sadness.
And that was also prepubescent.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
Like I feel like when you're younger, those emotions are pretty cut and dry, and as you get older, the lines blur, and they're all just they are your sense of self. Yeah. Which is, it's so good.
Yeah, I know. It's so cool.
It's so good.
Now, let's talk about, do you have anything else that stuck out to you, any other positives that stuck out to you? Because if not, I want to move into some kind of the mixed or negatives.
No, nothing that stuck out like just as amazing. Yeah. Other than the new characters.
Yeah, the new characters were great.
Great.
I do think that, and this is kind of like I said, transitioning into kind of the mixed or the negative.
Yeah.
They all had their moments.
Yeah.
Obviously, none of them. It felt a little bit at times like outside of anxiety. The other new emotions were kind of irrelevant to the plot.
Aside from
embarrassment.
Yeah, aside from embarrassment.
Yeah, I mean, embarrassment plays a big part in the plot.
Sadness.
It doesn't really play a big role in the movie, voice-wise.
Oh, well.
But yes, he does play a big part in the plot. Envy has the second most lines of the new emotions, but she's just kind of like anxiety's, like right-hand girl. You know what I mean? She's just kind of doing whatever. And then Ennui had some funny moments.
Yeah, Ennui was funny.
Boredom or whatever. Like, they had some funny moments. And obviously, I guess with the phone played a part in the plot. Sadness.
Don't forget nostalgia.
Oh my gosh, nostalgia is really funny. Those are some of the funniest ones when nostalgia came out. That was really, really funny. Yeah. So there was some, that was something that I don't think that's, like I said, that would be something I would say was mixed. It was just kind of like, okay, like I feel like there's, but also it just leaves more room, more things you can do with those emotions in the future, in future movies. To move into some of the stuff that I would say I was either kind of mixed or a little more down on, I would say one thing that I hope they don't continue to do. One thing that I was a little just kind of on about this movie was Joy has the exact same arc in this movie as she did in the first movie. And what I mean is, it doesn't really seem like she has learned much from the first movie, right?
Yeah.
The whole point of the first movie was, by the end, realizing she would allow Sadness to come to the board and to work together.
Yeah.
And even at the beginning of this movie, we see that, right? When Riley and her friends are going to the camp, and her friends tell her in the car they're not coming back to school, and she gets to the school and gets out of the car, and she allows Sadness. She allows Riley that moment to cry.
Wait a second. Just wait a second.
You have to have that moment of sadness and then go. Then you get these new emotions in, and it's like Joy just reverts back to her old self, which I guess is human, that's real. But it just felt like it was a little recycled as far as Joy's arc, because by the end of the movie, Joy, it was the exact same plot as the first one. It was just using this. It was just talking about the sense of self rather than the dashboard or whatever you want to call it. And by the end of the movie, Joy's like, now we want everybody to be a part of the sense of self. You know what I mean? Or we want Riley to build her sense of self. It's not up to Joy. It's not up to anxiety. It's up to Riley. So there's going to be some good. There's going to be some bad. There's going to be some times when I feel good about myself. There's going to be some times where I'm doubting myself and where I don't feel good.
I'm anxious.
Yeah, that's all a part of it. And so that was something that I just felt. I was like, oh, okay. It just kind of felt a little recycled as far as Joy's plot line. I don't think it didn't bore me. It didn't make the movie unbearable or unwatchable for me in any way. Like I said, I love this movie, but I just hope they don't continue to do that. I hope that they actually kind of bring Joy along and make, if they do a third one, which I assume they will, because this movie is massive, $1 billion movie already, then I hope that they do something a little different plot-wise.
Yeah, and I have no idea what that could be. Like, I haven't even, maybe college.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about this concept, is you can keep going, undoubtedly. Like, there's no question you can keep going. And you can keep going. You can do more than 3 if they're still making money, if you want to do more. I will say this, though, and this was something that I kind of put in my negatives column. I am not as excited about a third movie as I was before I watched this one. Okay?
Okay.
Now, once again, that doesn't mean I didn't like this movie.
Yeah.
I loved this movie. Okay? I do like the first one better. I loved this movie. But I think that was my thought process with what we just said, and I still feel that way in large part, was there's so many things I can do with this, right? Yep. She's continuing to age, she's continuing to grow, her emotions are continuing to develop. There's so many different things she can do. After watching this movie, I still feel that way in large part, but I also did feel like, as we talked about earlier in the positives, one of my favorite things about that first movie was what I call the gimmicks, meaning how are they going to portray, her dreams. Right?
Yeah.
How are they going to portray
her?
Yeah. How are they going to portray abstract thought? All of these different things that we get to see, and
you run out of runway.
Yes, there's only so much of that you can do, and so I thought they still had plenty of original ideas in the second one. It wasn't as much as the first. Obviously, you can't expect them to have as many as the first, but it does feel like that well is going to run dry. Yeah. And in that specific aspect of it. I'm not saying the movie in general. It's not that you can't make a good movie. But and eventually we're going to get a movie where there's not going to be any more of those gimmicks. And that's something that I love so much about this. I love seeing how they're going to portray different things. And so that's a little disappointing for me. That makes me not as excited about the future of the franchise. And all I mean by that is initially I thought these movies could potentially get better and better. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't think there's going to be one that's better than the first one, is how I feel now. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I wouldn't say, I'm not as hesitant on there being a third one as you, I don't think. And I love the gimmick stuff, but I think they could make just as a compelling story in the console room.
I agree with that.
And so I think they could, I know the whole point of it's Inside Out. Mm-hmm. So it's the name is literally Inside Out. The past 2 movies, we've spent more time on the inside than we have on the out. Yeah. And I could see the third maybe delving into more of the out than the inside. Mm-hmm. And having more, because I don't know if you noticed in this one, it has a little bit more narration during the outside moments. Mm. Yeah. That, not a ton more, but, there is more. There is, it kind of, stuck out to me. Yeah. And so, they could do more of that, the Wonder Years type. Mm-hmm. Just and that would be cool. Yeah. I would like that. Mm-hmm. But also, I'm not saying completely do away with the inside stuff. Obviously, I want to see those characters interact. Of course. And I could also see it being, I could see it being boring, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, repetitive to every time we go back to the inside, it's just the console room.
Yeah, I agree.
And I can see that.
And I don't think, I'll say this right now, I don't think the answer is to just continue to add new emotions every single movie.
No.
Right? And to have 20 characters that you're trying to get to know. Like, that just doesn't work. Not in a movie. Not in a Pixar movie, especially, that they're trying to be 90 to 100 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, like, these aren't MCU movies. These aren't big friends. Like, this isn't 3 hours.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that. They're not going to do a movie that's more than 2 hours, probably. And even that's long for a Pixar movie. So, I don't think that's the answer.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I agree. And, you know, we could sit here and talk about different plots that we'd want. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
We can sit here and talk about different plots. I don't think I'm as weary as you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the idea of there being more than 3 movies, that I'm weary of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Right now,
yes.
at least.
I can't even say. We'd have to see a third one.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And see what they do with it.
Now, yeah. Right now, I'm kind of weary of there being more than 3.
Yeah.
Now, if there's a third one, and it's as good as this one,
yeah,
then I think I would still be more hesitant. Because, like, there is only so much runway.
Yeah, I agree. And just to be very, very clear, as we close, we're closing up, okay? I wouldn't even say that I'm weary. All I'm saying
that word,
is,
I threw that.
I don't think that's wrong of you to say. All I'm saying is, I felt going into the second movie that I loved the first one so much, and I thought these movies could continue to get better and better. Now, I feel fairly confident that there's never going to be an Inside Out movie that I enjoy more than the first one. That's how I feel now, which just naturally makes me a little less excited for future movies, right? Doesn't mean I'm not excited. Like I said, I love this movie. I'll give you my rating in just a second. It's high, okay? It's great. But the first Inside Out movie is 100% a top 10 Pixar for me, borderline top 5, which if you're a Pixar fan, you know how high praise it. I mean, Pixar has just some phenomenal films. So, that's all I got, I believe. Is there anything else that you want to point out? Anything that you want to discuss? I mean,
just to add on that for me, kind of go, going with what he just said, as of right now, obviously time will tell. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking about a 9-year-old movie versus a movie made now.
Yeah.
I don't think I could put one above the other.
And I think that's fair. I think a lot of people feel that way.
But I think that's fair for any new movie in a franchise. Mm-hmm. That's what, I'm kind of glad right now. The next video we're gonna record is Kingdom of Planet of the Apes. And we've had time to kind of relish in that. But with this, we have, but we haven't. Yeah. It's been what? Like, we went and watched it not 2 weeks ago? Yeah. That week? That Sunday? Yeah, a little less than 2 weeks ago. And I just can't confidently put one above a 2. And I'm not going to put 2 above 1 because I am weary of that because of recency bias. Yeah. But, I'm not necessarily just fully differing from you. Mm-hmm. I just can't say I agree with that. Yeah, and you'll see from my rating that I don't think it's significantly worse by any stretch. I loved this movie. Okay, so let's rate it. Okay, the way we rate movies and TV shows here, we rate on a scale of 0 to 10 using 0.5, so kind of a scale of 0 to 20, but 0 to 10. Yeah, I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. Okay, and so I loved it. Like I said, now there are a handful of Pixar movies that I've given a 10 out of 10, and Inside Out 1 is a 9.5 out of 10 for me. So, then this is a 9 out of 10. I don't think it's much of a step down. I mean, like you said, they just do all of the same things as the first movie, just as good, really. Yeah. So, I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was great. I also went a 9 out of 10. And I say that saying, I think the first one's a 9 out of 10. Yeah. And so, I mean, I think that, and that just makes sense for me because it's, I mean, like I said, I was saying what I said a minute ago to preface this, is that I think they're both great. I think this one is great as well. I really liked, an aspect that I really liked was how much it dove into the hockey. Yeah, that was cool. Obviously it's going to because of the plot with Valentina. Yeah. And anxiety made Riley go. She popped off. Yeah, man. I mean, the way they portrayed that panic attack or the anxiety attack was so it makes you feel like you're having a panic attack. Really? It was on screen not showing the inside. It was on the outside showing Riley for probably a minute.
Yeah, man.
On screen, at least her just deep breathing, and then you see her friends like kind of ride by, and they're like, Riley, they're like checking in with her. Oh, it's so good. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
It's
right
great,
now.
man.
It's so
it's
good.
great. We can continue to talk about this great movie. I think last thing I'll say, more than anything else, more than even for just the Inside Out franchise, this is a step in the right direction for Pixar. I mean, this is right back on track. I mean, I think that this makes me so much more excited for the next few Pixar movies than I have been for the last few Pixar movies.
That's another question I was thinking.
So,
that's on camera.
We love, like I said, we love Pixar. If y'all want us to watch and review anything else from Pixar, if you want us to do any kind of Pixar rankings, then we would. Oh my gosh, that'd be so fun.
I'd love to.
We would love to. Because Pixar is just so great. So let us know, like we said, what you thought about this movie down below in the comment section. We would love to hear from some of you. If you have any questions about anything we thought about this movie that we didn't address in this video, then you can let us know down below in the comment section. Stick around for more videos on Fallout TV show, the Planet of the Apes franchise, the MCU, obviously, about our name, just anything and everything. We kind of like everything, movies and TV show wise. So, appreciate y'all watching, and peace.
Peace.